Hello! So in this tutorial I'll teach you how easy it is to create a business logic service, to get a record from a database table and to show that record in a presentation page. So first thing to do is to log in our framework, choosing the advanced workspace, and currently we see that we have two default projects here. So basically this is a default demo. So what we want to do is to create a new project. So a new project, let's call it teaching. By default my browser adds this some data in this field. So what we want to do is we want to add this project to the root folder, so we don't want to add this inside of any folder. So let's now create a new database for this project. Let's select the correspondent drivers and the correspondent fields. In here we want this to be teaching. Don't forget to put a username and with the correspondent credentials of a user that has permissions to create this database. If you want to can show some advanced options or not, it depends. And basically let's just save our correspondent projects. Project is saved, as we can see here, appear here teaching, and let's select our correspondent project. Okay, perfect. So now let's go to our database layer and let's create some databases. Currently we don't have any database created, so let's just do this very fast. By default the system creates these attributes here, so let's add a new attribute called name, which is a long name. Okay, let's move it here. Perfect. Well, as a matter of fact, we can erase all these other attributes that we won't need them. And perfect. Currently we have here our table created. Very simple, just two attributes: school ID auto incremented key, the name is a simply string. So now let's add some default records for the sake of this tutorial in this table. So because this auto incremented key, I don't need to fill this field here, so I can just save it. Okay, record saved correctly, and let's create a new one. Save. Okay, perfect. And we have here two records, two default records that we just added to our school table. Okay, database is done. Now let's go to our logic service and let's create a new service in here, a new service object inside of this folder. So let's create here, add service object manually. Let's give it the name school service. Let's save, so automatically it fills up all these fields here. Perfect. And now if we expand this, we can see that we have our new service here. So now let's add a new service methods, so that will get the record from the database. So then we can call these methods from the interface layer. Okay, so let's give it a name here, call it get school. Let's save. Okay, perfect. And now we have here the get school method here, as you can see. Okay, perfect. Now what we want to do, we want this service to receive a school ID as an input. So first thing to do is to go to the annotations here, add a new annotation called school ID. This will be the type of big int and cannot be null. Okay, perfect. So now this new method is receiving an input called school ID. Perfect. So now let's just drag and drop the correspondent task here to communicate with the database and get the correspondent record. To do that, we're gonna use this task here, execute db-dow action. So we just drag and drop it here and automatically opens the properties here. And what we want to do is to find objects from the database, and let's use the wizard so to be faster. So let's choose the teaching database, that were the database that we created. Let's choose the correspondent table that we created, which was the school, and automatically the wizard fills up these fields here. So we want this to return the school ID and the name attributes, and we want the conditions to be a school ID, and in here we need to pass the input of that specific the input that we created here for this specific method. How to do that? We just click here. Want this to be a local variable, so the inputs are inside of a data variable, all of the inputs. So we just need to put here data, and in here we need to put the name of the input that we gave, which is school ID. Okay, we do update, and automatically this part is done. Now we want to return these records to a variable, so we just need to put here simple variable, and we need to put here the name of the variable, which is schools. Perfect. Okay, we can give here some name too, or for this specific task, so which can be get schools based in ID, get schools from the database, something like this. Okay, we just save it. Okay, it's updated here. Perfect. So next task that we want to do, we want to return this variable from this method. So we go here to the return task, we drag and drop it here, we connect it both, and in here what I want to do is to be a local variable too, but in this case it's different. What I want to do is it's the schools variable that we created in this task, and we want to return the first record of these schools. Why? Because don't forget that the method that we choose here, the find object, returns a list of records. Although we put a list of records of a specific ID, which will be a list of just one record, but what we want to do here is to get that specific record, so the first record. So to do that, we just put here the variable name first, and then we just put here the first index of that list, which is the index 0. We just update it, we put this as a variable. Okay, we save, and we can give here some name, which could be return the misspelled the school details, something like that. Okay, return school details. Okay, perfect. And I believe our business logic service, it is done. So from this task we get the schools from the database based in the school ID, which we added here, this input, and then we get a list of records in the schools variable, where in here we return that schools variable, but only the first record. So basically the service is done. We can just save to be sure that it's saved. Okay, there is nothing to save, so the system saved this automatically. Perfect. And now we can just go back to our interface layer. Okay, so next step is to clicking in the index space. We use this page, but this is an empty page. I can show you. So let's just do the preview of this page. So this contains the default template that comes by default with this framework. And what we want to do here is simply to start creating in this region here the correspondent HTML. So we just drag and drop the HTML block, this one here, and in here what we're gonna do is we're gonna set the resources, widgets, a load resource, saying that I want every time that this page loads, that the index page loads, I want you to load a specific resource which you're gonna call the business logic. So to do that, first we need to create the resources. Where do we create the resources? Here in the main settings. We go here to the resource tab, we add a new resource, which basically will call a business logic service. So we click here, automatically this gets updated, and what we want to do is to use the wizard to choose the correspondent service that we just created, which is the get school service method. And we do update it, automatically this gets filled, and what we want to do next is to show we want to get the specific record from the database with the school ID equal to 1, and we want to put the results of this in a new resource called school. Now we want to go back here, and we want to, currently we don't have any, so we need to refresh, and now we can see that we have here the new resource that we created called school. So we just select, so we want this to load on page loads. Perfect, and we want the load handler to be this one, load element fields resources. Okay, perfect. So the first step is done. Next, what we want to do, we want to drag another block inside of here, which in this will be school ID, something like this. Put this small case in here. We want to drag and drop another div which we want to make this as a spam. Okay, and this spam, what we want to do is we want to go to the display resource attributes, where we want to show the school ID. So we just update it. The second step is done too. Okay, perfect. So now we want to drag and drop another div, and this div will be the school name. And in this case we're gonna do something different, where in here this display resource attributes we're gonna show the name, but in this case we want to show this in a different way. So we want to append the name of the school to this div here, so it will appear after these texts. Okay, it's done. In here, if we wish, we could add some other div in here, saying like school details, something like that, whatever. Okay, this is just to show you an example for the sake of this tutorial. So we save, and automatically when we preview the page we should see the corresponding school details of the record number 1, and here it is. If we want to show the second record of the with the school ID equal to 2, we just come here, change the ID, save, and automatically when we refresh this page we should see the second record, and voila, here it is. If we want to make this dynamic based in a variable from here, from the URL, it's very simple. We just need to come here and choose variable from URL. We just type the variable name, put this as a string, we save this, and automatically in here when we put school ID equal to 1, it shows the correspondent record. If we put equal to 2, it shows the correspondent record. So basically this is a very simple example that I show you how can you create based in records from a database table. How can you create very fast a business logic service which basically gets that record from the database, and then to show or to call that specific business logic service in the resources inside of a page, creating a resource, and show that resource in HTML widgets. That's it, very simple. If we wish, we could change this UI to a more beautiful UI by installing a new template. We save, so currently we have a new template. So if we refresh this page, we should see something like this. Then if we want, obviously that we needed to add some CSS to these HTML widgets that we created. So all of these HTML widgets, we could make this much more beautiful by adding some bootstrap classes in here, or to editing some fields in here, the width, the height. So you have a bunch of CSS options that you can just edit in here. An additional note that I should give you too is that everything that we have been doing until now, it's a manual process, but we can do this automatically too. Very simple. I can just show you. Let's just create here a new page, saying like page 2. Let's choose the corresponding template that we just had it, that we just installed it. And if we want to create in here automatically everything that we have been done before, what is very simple. Basically the only thing that we needed to do is to go here to the database and drag and drop the corresponding table into the region. Select the correspondent options here, so it's a form to view, and do the proceed, and automatically the systems will do all these steps that we did manually, will do it very fast in an automatic way. And voila, basically it creates automatically the widgets with the resources here, the correspondent resources which automatically calls the correspondence business logic layers, everything to show a specific record of a school. So if we save this and if we preview now this page, we need to pass here the school ID, otherwise it will give an error, no records available. So we put here school ID 1, it shows the school ID 1. If we put school ID 2, it shows the corresponding school ID 2. So basically everything that we did manually, we can do this very fast automatically. And that's it. So thank you very much.